Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 19 of Spooky and Kooky. You might notice that it's just me, Ellen, again. Alice is still recovering, but I promise that she will be back for our 20th episode. So thank you for joining me again. This is going to be another audio only. As always, if you're looking for anything spooky, kooky, paranormal, or maybe just a little bit weird, this is probably the pod for you. So this week I am going to be talking about the curse of Tutankhamun. I think there may be onto something here because my last episode was about curses and now this one is too. So obviously clearly an interest of mine, but it's a really interesting story and I've been excited to tell it, so I hope you enjoy. The legend of Tutankhamun's curse is one of the most captivating tales from Egyptology, intertwining mystery, superstition and historical intrigue. What if unlocking the treasures of an ancient tomb unleashed a curse that could reach beyond time itself? Could all the tragic events that followed simply boil down to coincidence or something more? Let me paint you a picture and you can come to your own conclusions. Howard Carter's relentless quest to uncover King Tutankhamun's tomb began in 1891 as he combed the sands of Egypt. However, excavation was an expensive endeavour and his funds quickly dwindled. In 1907, George Herbert, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, stepped in to finance Carter's efforts. Despite this support, it took another 15 years of searching in the Valley of the Kings before the tomb was finally unearthed. By 1922, Lord Carnarvon's patience had worn thin, and he was prepared to withdraw his funding. However, Carter persuaded him to bankroll one final season of digging. On the 4th of November 1922, a young boy carrying water stumbled across a step buried beneath the sand during the excavation. This soon turned out to be an entryway leading to the tomb of the legendary pharaoh Tutankhamun. As Carter and Carnarvon ventured inside, they discovered an astonishing trove of treasures, over 5,000 artefacts ranging from gold, chariots, and even food offerings for the afterlife. The pair also noticed a distinct rush of hot air escaping as they broke the seal, air that had remained undisturbed since the burial of the young king. Soon after opening the tomb, a series of eerie and tragic events unfolded, fueling whispers of a curse. The first incident occurred at Carter's home near the dig site. Carter lived alone and was somewhat of a recluse, dedicating his life solely to archaeology. He had decided to purchase a yellow canary for company and was subsequently told that they signify good luck and good fortune on the horizon. A week later, he discovered the tomb. However, the day they opened the tomb, the canary was killed in its cage by a cobra. To the Egyptians, the cobra was a symbol of royalty, prominently featured on the foreheads of pharaohs as a sign of power and protection. Strangely, the cobra attack occurred during winter, a time when these cold-blooded creatures were rarely active. Carter, a seasoned archaeologist who had handled countless mummies and relics, dismissed the notion of a curse. Lord Carnarvon, however, was more susceptible to such beliefs. Following World War I, an interest in spirituality and the occult swept through Britain, and Carnarvon was an avid participant. He hosted seances at his home in Highclere Castle, and reportedly received a warning during one seance to avoid entering the pharaoh's tomb. This warning was echoed by author Marie Corelli, known for her works on astral projection and reincarnation. Writing to the Times, she cautioned the entire expedition that disturbing a sealed tomb would result in dire consequences. Despite these warnings, Carnarvon joined Carter in Egypt for the tomb's opening. Shortly after entering, he was bitten on the cheek by a mosquito. According to claims, the location of the bite matched an indentation found on the cheek of Tutankhamun. The bite became infected, and Carnarvon's health rapidly declined, and he succumbed to blood poisoning. At the moment of his passing, his beloved Jack Russell Terrier reportedly let out a howl at Highclere Castle before collapsing and dying as well. Carnarvon's son, present at his father's bedside, later received a séance warning to avoid the tomb, a warning he heeded for the rest of his life. The curse extended its shadows beyond Carnarvon. Richard Bethel, the secretary of the entire expedition, reportedly experienced strange noises and dark energies in his London home, where many of the tomb's artefacts were stored. The dark forces became so intense that one of Bethel's servants tried to set the house on fire, as he could no longer stand it. Richard Bethel was then found dead in a club in Mayfair, and no explanation for his death was ever found. But the tragedy surrounding Bethel didn't stop there. His father, Lord Westbury, was devastated following his son's death and convinced that King Tut's curse was to blame. He was often heard whispering that the curse had destroyed his family before ending his life and jumping to his demise in his home. On the day of his funeral, the horse-drawn funeral carriage hit a young boy, ending his life instantly. Another victim of the curse, perhaps. Howard Carter himself sent a peculiar gift to his friend Bruce Ingham, a paperweight featuring a mummified hand adorned with a bracelet inscribed, "Cursed be he who moves my body." The gift seemed to bring the curse right to his doorstep, as shortly after receiving it, his house burnt down. When Ingham attempted to rebuild his home, it was struck by a flood. The list of tragedies connected to the tomb didn't end there. Lord Carnarvon's half-brother, Aubrey Herbert, had surgery on his eye following a long-standing issue. It didn't go to plan, and he fell fate to the same condition as Carnarvon and succumbed to blood poisoning, just 5 months after Lord Carnarvon passed away in Egypt. By 1924, Hugh Evelyn White, another archaeologist linked to the tomb, had seen the alleged curse wipe out much of the original dig team and many of those connected to them, including millionaire George J. Gould and Arthur Mace, but we'll dive into their stories later. It's not known whether Hugh had suffered a mental break, but something pushed him to the point of ending his life. He wrote the following statement in his own blood: "I have succumbed to a curse which forces me to disappear." Aaron Ember was yet another person to perish under suspicious circumstances. Ember was close friends with multiple people who were present at the opening of the tomb. It was now 1926, almost 4 years since King Tut's treasures had been discovered, but the curse had Ember locked in its sights. Whilst hosting a dinner party at his home in Baltimore, a fire broke out and began to rapidly spread. Ember's wife managed to get out with their son, whilst Ember himself tried to save a manuscript he had been working on for a number of years. He perished in the fire. The name of the manuscript he tried to save? The Egyptian Book of the Dead. So are all these events simply coincidences? Can some be explained by paranoia? Surely by now, if there was a curse, it would be long gone. Well, documentaries and movies that focused on Tutankhamun also had strange happenings. One example of this was in 1992, during the filming of a documentary to mark the 70th anniversary of Howard Carter's discovery. The crew reportedly experienced health issues such as fevers and mysterious ailments. On top of this, technical equipment such as cameras and lighting would repeatedly malfunction for no apparent reason. But could there be another explanation for the tragedy surrounding the opening of Tutankhamun's tomb? As I mentioned at the start of the story, King Tutankhamun's tomb was filled with over 5,000 treasures, from the pharaoh's ritual beds to his inner coffin of solid gold. Expedition funder Lord Carnarvon, millionaire George J. Gould, and Arthur Mace all suffered lung infections after entering the tomb. Arthur Mace was a brilliant archaeologist, specialising in the preservation of ancient artefacts. And in King Tut's tomb, he was faced with preserving over 5,000 of them. He quickly became Carter's right-hand man, and the two men obsessively catalogued thousands of treasures. But the work was hard and the conditions were tough. This had to take place not only in the heat of the desert, but inside the tomb itself, with hundreds of tourists and press waiting outside. With temperatures reaching over 40 Celsius, the pair quickly became desperate to find a cooler place to work. They moved to a larger tomb that was recently excavated, and Mace began testing the artefacts using various chemicals and his trusty Bunsen burner. And as a consequence, they were breathing in the subsequent fumes. His health began to fail before he was able to finish the job, forcing him to leave Egypt, where he eventually passed away to lung disease. Labs in Cairo have dedicated their research to the treasures found in the tombs and believe orpiment could be one of the villains in this story. Orpiment is a mineral found in the eastern desert of Egypt. Prized for its yellow colour, it was the perfect ingredient to represent the gold skin of the gods. And so, it was ground up and made into a pigment. It was used widely on paintings and treasures, including those found in King Tut's tomb. Modern-day chemical testing has shown that orpiment contains high levels of arsenic. While short-term exposure would prove non-fatal to Mace, long-term exposure would have been hazardous. Unbeknown to Mace, he increased his exposure even further, as he had a strange habit of tasting some of the artefacts. So now we know arsenic was one of the killer toxins that King Tut's tomb contained. But the others had little contact or no contact with the paint. So it leaves me to question, was there another invisible killer inside the tomb? Carter rejected the theory that there may be pathogens inside the tomb, claiming it had laid dormant too long for anything to still survive. He enlisted scientists to prove this, sharing swabs taken from the mummy with British microbiologists. They came to the conclusion that there was no bacteria found on the bandages. However, science has come a long way in the century since the tomb's discovery, and microbial tests on recently excavated tombs discovered the deadly fungus named Aspergillus flavus. This fungus thrives on decaying matter and can cause lung infections when inhaled in large doses or if the immune system is weakened. Aspergillus flavus is something that as human beings we encounter all the time, though this is only in small doses. The fungus would have been present in King Tut's tomb and would have been inhaled by all who entered it. This could cause fevers, pneumonia, sepsis, and ultimately death. After entering the tomb, George J. Gould contracted a fever, Arthur Mace a lung infection, and Lord Carnarvon pneumonia with inflammation of the nose and eyes, all of which are clear symptoms of exposure to Aspergillus flavus. As the tale unravels, science offers its own narrative. The presence of Aspergillus flavus a dangerous fungus thriving in the ancient tomb. Add that to the other plausible dangers: arsenic and a sealed environment preserving long-forgotten pathogens. And yet, the uncanny remains. How does one explain the seemingly unbroken sequence of misfortunes, threading through time like the shadow of Tutankhamun himself? Could it all truly be coincidence? In the end, the mystery does not rest neatly in the realm of science or superstition. The tomb is sealed once more, this time not with stone, but with the enduring enigma of the curse. I would love to know, as always, what you guys as the listeners think. Do you think it was all down to the curse? To science? Or something in between? One thing I do find interesting is the frequency of fires and even a flood in this story. To me, it almost has religious connotations, but maybe you think differently. Let me know. Thank you for listening, and if you like our content, please do like and subscribe, and I look forward to our 20th episode next time with Alice right back at my side again, so join in for that. And as always, stay kooky and stay spooky.